How's it all going, YPO? Hey, Cape Town. How many of you love Cape Town? Come on, you gotta be louder than that. You gotta be louder than that. This place is absolutely amazing. It's my first time to Cape Town and my first time to a YPO event. So first off, I want to thank you all for making this opportunity possible, but also to kind of celebrate the fact that you guys, I mean, you know the numbers, 22 million people employed worldwide. I think that needs to be celebrated by people who have got those jobs, but also for you business leaders. So thank you so much for that. One more round of applause for yourselves. So, as was mentioned, my name's Alvin Carpio. I run an organization called The Fourth Group, and we were established as a public advocacy group to shape tech for all, leaving nobody behind. In the last couple of years, since the wake of Brexit, we have built a global community of 250,000 people across 160 different countries, all with the mission to make sure the fourth industrial revolution is shaped for all, leaving nobody behind. Before that, I spent a decade in campaigning on social justice and human rights issues. I know I look like a kid, I look like 12, but I'm actually 31. It's my baby face Filipino blood, which deceives that. But I've been campaigning on these issues for a very long time. And today, in this short space of time, I'll be talking about citizenship in the digital age, particularly rights and responsibilities, but in a way which probably you won't have heard in most of these kinds of conferences. So I really want to have a heart-to-heart with you, hence why I don't have any slides. I just want to talk to you as if it was me and you in a pub in London having a good chat with a pint of beer. To take you back, my mother came to England when she was 19. She left the Philippines with a hope of a better future for her kids and her future kids and her family. A very typical immigrant story. She arrived in a place called Lake District, where she worked as a chambermaid cleaning hotels in the Lake District. And then my dad came later to work as a waiter, serving food in places that looked very much like the West Inn right next to us. When I was young, unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 9 years old. And for me, the sense of responsibility, when I was told immediately as a 9-year-old kid, you are the man of the house, I didn't really know what the hell that meant. But when it came to a real responsibility, unfortunately, it came in a kind of bad example. So afterwards, I kind of got involved in a bit of bad stuff. Newham, where I was born and raised, is actually known for its multiculturalism, but also, unfortunately, for having some of the highest poverty rates in England, whilst also being a place where the headlines are around kids getting stabbed or kids getting killed by gunshots. I myself used to carry a knife. I did it kind of as a young teen because that's what everyone did. I didn't really think much of it. And I carried it first off to be like the biggest kid on the block. I thought by having a bigger knife, I was the cooler kid. And also that was just what we thought. But it was actually a moment when I was at my little cousin's house, let's call him Isaac, I won't say his real name. And he actually came up to me and said, Kuya, which means big brother in Filipino, Kuya, can I have one of your knives as well? And so I was like, bloody hell. I did not know that by carrying a knife, something that you thought, or I thought was something I chose to do, would influence one of my family members who was younger. And it was at that point where I was trying to convince him that carrying a knife, of course, was the worst thing to do. You're more likely to get stabbed if you carry a knife. But that knife moment was a turning point because I recognized that the things we do, even though we think we're doing it discreetly, has an impact on ourselves, the people around us, and ultimately, with people with your responsibility and your reach, sometimes the world. Now, I'm not saying you guys have to carry a knife to learn about responsibility, but at the same time, for me, that was a real big turning point. But what really is this about? I later actually became the first to graduate from university. Is there anybody who's never been to university before in this room? 2 people. 3 people, that's amazing. Well, maybe you should join me in going to university. I mean, for me, university was a real huge turning point. I learned the stories about public leaders like Mandela, of course, who fought against apartheid. I learned about Jose Rizal, the person who fought against Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines. And I also learned about Martin Luther King, whose dream had influenced not only those in the US, but also those worldwide. That was really my first experience of really understanding what global citizenship meant. That one person's dream and 250,000 people gathered in a place could impact people not only in that area, but people's perception of rights across the world and over time. And that, for me, is when I felt I wanted to be a global citizen as well. What happens in Manila impacts what happens in Mumbai, impacts what happens in Plaistow. I actually, beforehand, after graduating, applied to do an internship at Merrill Lynch, which I'm sure you all know about. This was before my kind of career in campaigning. But then 2008 happened, financial crash. So I got the internship initially in investment banking, trading, and was going to be on the front desk. But 2008 happened. The financial crash completely changed everything. And the only thing I had afterwards was an application to an internship with a business leader who had previously sold his company for £500 million. It was QXO.com, the precursor to eBay, and he was now starting up a new venture. It was an unpaid internship, but the key thing was that at the time, I'd heard about the living wage. Do people in the room know what the living wage is? Any hands? Living wage is the amount of money per hour needed to live a decent life. It's a calculation which is the minimum you need to be able to provide for your family. And that was actually my first negotiation ever. I remember sitting across this £500 million man saying, I can't really do this work for free, but I'll do it for a living wage. And for me, the lesson there was around rights. It was about the fact that I felt there was an idea which I could come to an employer with and actually fight on that very individual basis to be able to have what was perceived to be good. Which led me to a whole career in campaigning for living wages. And as a community organizer, we brought millions of pounds of money to the pockets of the working folk of London. Some of the poorest families later got a raise, and 10 years later, we got the minimum wage to be increased in the UK. It was the power of one story and an idea, and the concept of the right to be able to earn enough to put food on the table, which led to real change in real people's lives. But now, we're changing everything with this fourth industrial revolution. Last year, we did an inquiry to figure out what were our rights and responsibilities in the digital age. And actually, the most surprising thing was the fact that so much of it is very much linked to old ideas, old principles, things that make us human and things that we find common to all, no matter where we're from or where we've come from. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned running the Fourth Group is the fact that there is this sense of global citizenship, aided by the fact that we can communicate with everyone around the world and ideas spreading so fast. So I'd like to end on this. When it comes to corporate responsibility, global citizenship, and the idea of this technological change completely shifting everything, we really need to go back to first principles and really get back to our human instincts and our human values. There's actually a phrase, and this is kind of dating advice to end on. A lot of my friends who are single ask me, do you have any advice about how getting a relationship? And the wisdom I share, which was told to me once, was that it's the best things about somebody which attracts you to them, but it's the worst things about somebody which decides whether or not you stay together. I think in business, that's one of those things in relationships with our business leaders and civil society and governments that we can really apply in those settings too. So I love you all guys for creating these opportunities, and I just want to say thank you so much. But hopefully we'll have a better chat later on in the pub in Temple Re and talk about this even further. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Take care. Peace.